What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another PlayStation tips and tricks video. Today I'm going to show you in detail how I fixed the stick drift issue on a really old PlayStation 4 controller. Now, if you're unfamiliar with stick drift, this is basically what it looks like, where the analog stick has input movements without even touching it. Now, to fix this issue completely, you need to either clean or replace the sensor wheels on the analog module. Now, most of the time, a replacement is the best option, but some people have had really good luck with simply cleaning them using alcohol and a Q-tip. Now, you can get replacement sensor wheels online for fairly cheap, or you can try transplanting them from an older controller. Now, the tools that you will need to do this are a small screwdriver set with both Phillips and flathead screwdrivers, and tweezers are useful, but they are not necessary. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to unscrew the bottom shell of the controller. This is pretty easy. And then we're going to pry apart the controller. I recommend keeping the controller face down when you're doing this and then squeezing the handles where the top and bottom shell meet. Now, if you've never opened your controller before, this can be kind of difficult, and there are tools that can make it easier, but a little hand strength works just as well. Next, we're going to disconnect the white ribbon connector and then set the bottom shell off to the side. Then we will disconnect the battery. I don't recommend pulling on the wires, otherwise you will break them. You will want to pull on the connector with your fingertips or tweezers. Now we're going to remove the plastic piece that holds the battery and unscrew the circuit from the top shell of the controller, and then very gently we are going to flip over the circuit. You will want to be extra careful with the wires connecting to the rumble packs, otherwise they may come unsoldered. Next, we will remove the analog stick from the module that has the stick drift, and then we are going to use a small flathead screwdriver to gently pry open the sensor wheel housing. Now, depending on if your analog stick is drifting up or down, you should only need to replace just one sensor wheel or clean it. But in this video, I will be replacing both the X and the Y sensor wheels. You'll also want to be careful when handling the sensor wheels. You don't want to bend or break them. Using tweezers does make it easier. But now what we're going to do is we're going to inspect the sensor wheels once we have them in our hand. And if you notice any black dust in the center of the sensor, they might just need to be cleaned, but in most cases, it's best just to replace them. Now we're going to place the new sensor wheels in the housing with the two dots facing down. I do recommend using tweezers when doing this because it makes it easier. And you will also want to make sure that when you close the sensor housing that you do so until you hear a click noise. And then that's the process. Now we can start reassembling the controller. First, we're going to reattach the analog stick and then flip the circuit back over. Now, unfortunately, one of the wires to a rumble pack did come unsoldered with this controller. So again, you want to be extra careful with those wires. Otherwise, you will have to resolder or just play without vibration. But now we're going to reattach the small ribbon cable as well as the battery housing and then the screw that holds the circuit. And then we will plug in the battery and place it back in the housing. And now if you are unlucky enough to have one of the R2 or L2 triggers come loose, you will have to reattach them. And this actually can be a bit difficult, but the secret is to make sure that the springs line up perfectly. So I recommend following the method that I'm doing here in this video. And then once it's attached, you'll just want to make sure that the trigger resistance is good before you continue. And then lastly, we're going to attach the white ribbon cable, making sure that the gold is facing inward towards the battery. And then we will assemble the bottom shell onto the controller. This is also a bit tricky, and I don't recommend forcing it together. You will just want to be very careful and kind of move it around with very light pressure until it goes together. If it's not going together at all, 9 times out of 10, it's usually because the battery cradle is crooked, so I recommend double checking it if you have that issue. But that's it. Now we can put the screws back in and test out the controller. And as you can see, the stick drift is 100% gone. I hope that you all enjoyed this video and found it useful or at least interesting. If you did, make sure to leave a like rating on the video, comment below to let me know what you think, and as always, don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell for post notifications. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.